Hi, my name is Jeremy Sizemore, a student at FullSailUniversity Online, and this is a brief history of the evolution of sound effects in film over the years. The late 1800s brought us the beginnings of film. We commonly refer to this time, up through the late 1920s, as the silent film era. While synchronized audio wasn't a thing yet, the term silent film can be a bit misleading in the context of the history of sound effects. In the 1890s, a traveling exhibitioner by the name of Lyman H. Howe realized phonographs were not sufficient in producing time-sensitive sound effects, such as slamming doors or a gunshot. This led him to begin using live sound effects generated from behind the screen. During this time, there was also experiments where hidden live actors did their best to synchronize their voices to the screen, but these were confusing to audiences and the practice did not last long. Outside of traveling exhibits, these attempts at adding live sound effects were rarely used. However, the need for sound was apparent. Music was usually played live alongside a film to convey emotion and drown out ambient noises. And soon, percussion instruments were implemented to help underscore movement and activity being portrayed on the screen. These tools were used in theaters all across the U.S., varying in size. Some smaller theaters had simply an accompanying pianist, while larger movie palaces had enormous orchestras with as many as 100 musicians. In fact, in 1926, there were roughly 26,000 musicians employed by American movie theaters. In 1917, just 3 years before synchronized sound came to film, inventor Frank Lelo developed a system of sound effect machines tied together with a single control point. He hoped to sell his invention to film theaters, which would then have someone manning it for each film, playing the associated sound effects on cue. The September 1919 issue of Popular Science magazine has a short article on this device. Despite his best attempts, the popularity of this invention never really caught on, and just a few years after he began marketing it, an event happened that arguably had the biggest impact on the film industry to date.
I am privileged to say a few words to you.
Synchronized sound came to film. It took off quite quickly, with audiences demanding more of it. Frank Lelo's invention was obsolete before he ever got it off the ground. The golden age of silent films was over, and by 1934, the number of employed theater musicians was down to just 4,100. It didn't take long for film to borrow and capitalize on a technique already well in use in broadcast radio. Jack Foley was established in the film business, but had made a name for himself in radio broadcast as well, honing the art of using props on a soundstage to create sound effects. He had such an impact on this art that it eventually became known by his namesake. Jack Foley was renowned for his ability to set up his props and record a full 10-minute feature's worth of sound effects in one take. This art form became widely used, and for the rest of film's history has always held its own place among the creative processes and productions. While this art form is still in place, technology has grown over the years to allow different forms of creativity. In the 40s, Disney's Fantasia was the first film to incorporate surround sound. In 1951, Robert Weiss directed The Day the Earth Stood Still, which was a nominee for a Golden Globe for Best Original Score. The score had heavy use of the theremin, which seems corny and antiquated by today's sound standards. But at its time, it helped to invoke uneasiness and wonder in the audience. Multiple-channel stereo was a new addition in this decade as well. In 1960, the film Spartacus became known as one of the most attention-grabbing films of its year because of the use of the sound effects.
I'm Spartacus!
In the 1970s, sound designer Ben Burtt was working with George Lucas on Star Wars. He was looking for inspiration for the sound of the lightsabers, and he used a combination of the sound of an old simplex projector motor hum in conjunction with audio interference from a microphone passing near a powered-on television picture tube. He found these noises by accident, but that was the foundation for the sound design of one of the most iconic sound effects in film history. With Dolby Stereo becoming popular in theaters during this time, sound design was still taking on more and more of an important role in film production. With the 80s came films with iconic sound effects like Blade Runner, Back to the Future, and Aliens. With the introduction of newer and more advanced sound systems such as THX and Dolby Surround, sound was immersing viewers more than ever. In the 90s, Jurassic Park was another iconic step in film sound effect design. Like Star Wars, the sound designers took inspiration from some unexpected places for many of the noises the different dinosaurs made. A digital mix of dolphins and walruses are what you hear right before the velociraptor is about to make its attack. Sound design and sound effects are still to this day their own art form. Sound effect designers are increasingly taking more and more of a digital approach to creating sound. The basis behind Foley art is still vital, and in my opinion will not be disappearing from film. Humans enjoy film for many reasons: to educate, to motivate, and to entertain. Sound effects are vital to all of this. We are on the precipice of a new frontier with immersion. Sound effects aren't the end-all for immersion, and we are already seeing the inclusion of scent and feel, with 4DX slowly making its move into the mix. But these new advancements, in my opinion, would not replace sound effects. Sound will only be enhanced by them.